Okay. So, sign into chat. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope everybody is doing well. If you are tuning in, thank you for tuning in. I certainly appreciate it. Um, I've had enough today. Today is the day that I'm gonna try to do something. I've been at home working on some things, trying to understand some programs and improving my computer and trying to understand what on earth is going on right now. And I've had lots of time to think about it. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start doing this show, it's like a podcast every day, and see if I can't get some kind of traction. So let me. Can I do this? I hope everyone is having a good day and is excited about Christmas. I know my wife is. And so I think it's a good time to talk about what's going on in the world. Today is the day that in the UK they have given the first COVID-19 vaccine recipient a trial vaccine. This is monumental, right? We're all expecting life to kind of go back to semi-normal after we get the vaccines into our system. We're told that that's the best way to improve our health somehow. And that, of course, this pandemic is super deadly and it's killing all kinds of people. And we know that because of case infection rates. First of all, case infection rates do not determine between whether a person is sick or whether a person has been exposed to the virus in the past, on top of the fact that there are numerous other issues. It's difficult to really kind of talk about it all within a short framework since I'm not an expert and you know, really the purpose of this podcast is to try to tell you what some things that I kind of grasp in a layman's perspective, how those things seem to be playing out. And I'm going to go. Oh, shoot. I'm doing the wrong thing here. Let me do this. Okay. Let's go to the first clip. We're all very excited. Let's hear what's going on.
A milestone moment, the first dose of optimism in what has been a dismal year. A 90-year-old woman in the UK has become the first person in the world to receive a clinically approved coronavirus vaccine. Just before 7 a.m., retired jewelry shop assistant Margaret Keenan made history, getting the first dose of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. She turns 91 next week and said this is the best early birthday present she could wish for.
Well, I mean, kudos to this woman. She's believing everything that she's being told. She has no reason not to believe it. Every single major media outlet out there has been praising these vaccines, talking about how isn't it wonderful? Once we get these vaccines, we can go back to life as normal. So why wouldn't this woman think that this vaccine is a wonderful thing? I mean, vaccines have saved countless millions of lives, right? That's the narrative that we're told over and over again. And well, let's just say that I question that narrative right off the hop. But I have nothing. This woman, God bless her. Good for her to step up and do this. But I just want to show you a little bit of the imagery they're going to use.
It is welcome news, not just in the UK, but around the world. So much hope of a return to normal life resting in these tiny vials. It's been
so much hope of a return to normal life resting in these tiny vials. Why did we have to leave normal life? Why did everything have to shut down in the first place? That's what I'm curious about, because the disease has been relatively seasonal. The only thing that has been different this year has been the reaction of public health officials in concert around the world, 193 countries, except for a couple that decided to try to do their own thing. Sweden's the most notable one. And now, for whatever reason, they seem to be kind of coming around to going along with the rest of the players from the UN that have agreed to adapt Agenda 2030. Now, I'm not going to go into Agenda 2030 at this moment, but I think it's really important to know that I have produced a video which I posted recently on my page where I basically explained that this is just it's a business opportunity. I mean, the idea that vaccinations are they are critical to 14 of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as put forth by Agenda 2030 and the pact signed by 193 different nations. And I made that point over and over again in the video that I made, although I suppose it might have been dry or dull, or maybe I'm just dry or dull. And maybe that's why I only got like 40 something views. But I understand that I take a long time to get to a point, but sometimes I also understand that people are out there looking for quick answers. They want to point fingers. They want people to blame. They want to say, this is this person's fault. And if we just get rid of this person, it's all going to go back to normal. It's not going to go back to normal. Okay? The world has changed. It's changed in a fundamental way. Hindsight is 2020. And I've been saying that one for a long time. And what does that mean? What does that mean when I say it? It means that it's time to actually go back and look at all this stuff that we've taken at face value, that we've just accepted for granted, that all these vaccination programs they've been telling us, and they're just up and upping the schedule for kids. It's gone from 12 vaccines for kids when I was a kid to something like 80. That's a massive increase, and kids are getting sicker. So why are kids getting sicker? Well, there's plenty of reasons. Environmental, toxic. There's plenty of reasons. But what they never question is vaccination. My question is always why? Why don't we look at vaccination? Why do we look at unvaccinated versus vaccinated populations? That seems like something that you would want to know. It seems like a good idea. Hang on one second. I just want to see. I just realized that I didn't really check this. I don't know where my mic's coming from. It doesn't matter. Hopefully this sounds okay. If anybody is watching, I would appreciate it if you could. It says there's nobody watching, but if there was somebody watching and you could let me know about the volume, I'd certainly appreciate it. You know what? Let me just do something here. Let me go to Facebook and share my page on, just because I really do want to get some feedback. For me, what I want is feedback. I want to talk to people. I want to speak about what's going on, because this is a huge deal. We are changing a lot of fundamental principles of our lives and our health, for that matter. And I think that it's important that we should ask, what's going on here? You know, don't you think it would be something that we should know? Sorry, this is a very, I would love to show everybody what's going on with my setup here. Okay. And let's post that, and we can close that. So, you're getting raw me, folks, which isn't always pretty. It's never pretty, but, you know, hopefully we can get a little bit of entertainment and just understanding out of what's going on right now, because this is kind of it's mad what's going on right now, in my opinion. It's totally unproven technology, and we're rolling it out at breakneck speed without even starting to look at what the consequences could be of that. And that seems like the height of medical hubris in my mind. So,
in just 332 days since the first death from COVID-19 was reported in China, and it's since invaded every country, infecting more than 67 million people and killing more than 1.5 million.
Just so as you know, between 2 and 3 million people every year worldwide are killed by respiratory viruses. Are we off the beaten path here? No. The only difference has been the way that people are reacting to this, and they've done it because, unfortunately, with human beings, when one person starts doing something that's a little crazy, other people tend to join in. It's mob mentality. It's what you see what happens in riots and giant fights, and you see it happening in simpler ways where it doesn't necessarily take an aggressive gene to get involved. You can simply just be in there was something called the Milgram experiments, where they took a bunch of people and saw what they do if they had a guy with a lab coat stand there and tell them to do something that they knew was harming a person. So, I mean, there's been countless examples of this happening in history, and it's not unusual for people to do things just because someone else is doing it. They don't necessarily think it through. They just say, oh, well, this person in a position of authority is doing something. Well, it must be okay, right?
These initial doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine are the start of the world's biggest mass vaccination program. Canada is on track to be next in line to get it. Because it needs to be kept at minus 80 degrees, it is a logistical challenge.
It has to be kept at minus 80 degrees. What are we talking about here? This is something that is so volatile. The odds of it actually working the way that they say it's going to work, which I'm going to get into, they seem to be pretty low, right? Assuming you can get it to people. But let me just tell you something about it. It sure is a moneymaker for the companies that are producing and handing out these vaccines. And that's important. That's important to know.
In the UK, the first doses did not go to residents in care homes. It was given to people aged 80 and over who are already in hospital, along with nursing home workers and some healthcare staff. Crystal Gamansing has our top story on what's been dubbed V-Day in the UK.
I'm happy it's happened, and now I've done it, and hopefully it'll help other people come along and do as I did.
Do as I did might be.
You will see this over and over again, okay? This is trying to get people to jump on the bandwagon. That's what all of this is about. This has been a giant PR campaign to basically try and embolden vaccine manufacturers to develop a whole new line of research that they see as potentially a giant moneymaker, number one. So sometimes you don't need to get farther than base impulses and base motivations for why people want to do things. It could just be about money, number one. And then if you get to potentially, come off as a hero for doing it as well, that's another motivation. So, and number three, there's accolades that come with being on the front line of this research until it's shown to be possibly dangerous. So at this point, they're basically plowing ahead with this field of research, and they're saying that there's no way that this could possibly be dangerous. In fact, it's just another continuation of the wonderful vaccination orthodoxy that we are living under.
The 2020 version of the old Rosie Riveter We Can Do It campaign. COVID.
Sorry, I just wanted to get to that because it's just so funny. You could do it. Okay, yeah, you could do it. I'm not doing it. Now let's go to the first guy. This is a fellow that works in the hospital there in the UK. He is he's an anesthesiologist, and he works in critical care. He's a specialist in critical care. So this guy deals in the intensive care unit all day long. That's what he does. And this is one of the first guys to get it in the UK.
Among those who got the initial shot of the vaccine today is Dr. Chris Goff. He's an intensive care physician and joins us from his hospital in Cardiff, Wales. Dr. Goff, good to see you. Nice of you to take the time today. So first of all, what was that moment like to get that shot?
What was it like? What's it like to be
a lovely moment to do something to protect my patients, my colleagues, and my family. There's nothing.
Just for the record, he has no evidence of that. This is all circumstantial, and we're making predictions about what this new mRNA vaccine technology is doing. So he has no idea what he's talking about. And I just want to point that out. He has no idea what he's talking about. He's deferring to experts, and he works in a hospital. And working in a hospital in the intensive care unit and being an anesthesiologist might tell you something about physiology, but it doesn't tell you very much about nutrition. It doesn't tell you very much about the actual immune system, virology, other than the stuff that you're told, which is basically just like, do this, and this is the order that you give people vaccines, and this is what you tell them when they have questions. They don't actually talk about it. They don't talk about potential harms and negative effects. They go, oh, the potential harms are way overblown. They're not really that bad. So, and just for the record, this guy could be the nicest guy on the planet. He could be the smartest guy on the planet. He doesn't really come off like it, to be perfectly honest, but neither do I, so who am I to talk? But he could be the nicest guy on the planet, and he's doing this for all the right reasons. So again, God bless him for doing something, but man, do you have any idea what you're up to?
More poetic than the first male in the world being called William Shakespeare in Warwickshire being vaccinated, surely. But it's a wonderful thing. It's wonderful, but it comes with caveats. It is not a magic bullet. It is not going to cure things overnight. It is part of a package of measures that will help control this virus.
So this guy's also not an economist, just to be clear. He's going along with all the stuff that these insane policies have suggested in public health with very little evidence of efficacy or even being helpful in any way. In fact, when you listen to a guy like Ever Cummings, which I was going to queue up, but I've already got so much stuff up here, and I only wanted to be on for like an hour and a half maybe. Today I'm not 100% prepared. I want to do a stinger. I want to do all that kind of stuff, and I'm going to start doing this on the regular. Even if I'm just talking to myself, just to try to straighten out some of my own thoughts, I suppose. But it's good. It's motivating me to try to learn more, so I think that's a good thing. But hey, if you can learn along with me, I think that people want to know what's going on. They want to understand. They want somebody to be frank with them and straight with them and try to tell them stuff. And when that amount of information is limited and they talk down, they dumb down everything that they say to people, which is the point of vaccination. They dumb down the entire conversation. They don't want people asking tough questions because tough questions leads to public distrust, and public distrust means to less uptake of vaccinations, which was happening because there is a lot of questions surrounding vaccination. There is a lot of questions surrounding why our kids are getting sicker. And there is a lot of questions surrounding the flu shot, which is like... I know you're going to hear it's safe and effective, works, get it every year, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show you a CDC website that says exactly that. But there's very little evidence that the flu shot does anything of value. There's very little evidence, and there seems to be some evidence that it actually causes an increase in respiratory problems. But you don't want to talk about that, right? That would be bad, because then people might question the program.
But it is a very welcome measure indeed.
How many hours ago did you get it? What did it feel like? How are you feeling now? Do you feel a little pain in your arm? Just tell me anything.
I had about 5 hours.
Just for the record, the way that this thing works, okay, other than the initial jab in the arm and the pain that you might feel from that, issues won't manifest for days, like not hours, days, weeks, years. Okay, it doesn't work over a couple of hours. It's reprogramming your body to send out RNA to reprogram proteins to affect the way that your cells work, so that it potentially is going to help with an immune response in some way, which I still don't fully understand, but I'm trying, and it's very difficult to find straight answers.
Hours ago. It was a lot like getting the flu jab, but actually I found the flu jab this year slightly more painful. So this one, I didn't even feel it really. You can't see me now, but I've been at work.
Just for the record, he doesn't question the flu jab whatsoever.
For the last sort of 5 hours since then, looking after sick COVID patients in.
I've been working, I'm fine, and it only feels a little bit tender. All right, man. You're doing what you think is right. Good for you. I went to his Twitter page. This guy is also very surprised that Donald Trump is still, oh my gosh, when are they going to get rid of this? Is an anti-Trump guy, which is just to say that people have divided themselves into camps, and that has provided very interesting ways to look at what's happening, the dynamics around what's happening, and if you think it's not being used to bully people and to try to agree with some stuff, then you're really not paying attention. There was a tweet yesterday from a school board somewhere that talked about that if you don't get the jab, it's somehow a perpetuation of white supremacy. Like this is, there's a lot of factors going into the way that people are acting around this thing. A lot. a lot, and you have to question why there's so many that are converging at this exact time in history. But maybe it's the equinox or whatever they call that thing that's going to happen on December 21st. I've been watching people talk about this wonderful transformation that's going to take place on December 21st, 2020, and I've fallen for that stuff before. Perfectly honest, I fell for that stuff before. I was a fan of Terence McKenna and his wave theory, end wave theory. I can't even remember what it was called. It was so long ago. But I bought into it. I'm not necessarily buying into this one, but at this point I'm not discounting anything out because the world has completely changed. The world has gone nuts. And, sometimes there's pain before we grow. So, I just want to point this out. Plus COVID vaccine plus 21 hours. Feel absolutely fine. Upper arm aching a bit at times, including when I lay on top of it during the night. Fortunately, I spend less than 1% of my time lying with my body weight on my arms, so still all good currently. Well, thank you for the update. He had something else that I thought was really interesting. The COVID vaccine is great news, but it is an extra tool in the armory, not a substitute for other measures. I will still be wearing a face mask, washing my hands, and keeping my distance from others as much as possible. So this guy's he's a real hugger. You can you can tell just by the things that people say. I'm not afraid to hug or touch or go anywhere. I worn a mask one time for 10 minutes until it drove me absolutely nuts because I know it does not work. Especially when I have this beard and it goes on over the beard. Like, seriously, virons don't care about your ridiculous mask. Okay? They don't. There is zero evidence for efficacy. Even when Theresa Tam comes out and says, double and triple layer and that's extra protection. Well, it's extra air loss for you. And there's all the studies debunking whether or not higher concentrations of CO2 can be bad for you over time. They're ridiculous. They're always very short, very specific, but that's how you have to do science. I mean, you have to be kind of specific about it if you want to have replicable results, which is obviously a blind spot with science. But this is it. Today is the day. I've been reading quite a bit about the vaccine results as well as the cleverness of an mRNA vaccine and now feel even luckier to be in the first groups offered this. Protecting my patients, protecting my colleagues, protecting my family. #DocsForVax. So, does his position seem clear enough to you? He obviously doesn't question anything. So, he also fancies himself a bit of a musician, so that's interesting. There was one more thing I wanted to... I guess not. Oh, it's this. The COVID vaccine approval gives me hope. Hope and optimism that 2021 will be better. If you're still wearing masks and social distancing and all that stuff, what makes it better, specifically? What made it bad for you? If you're going to be doing that stuff anyway, and you think that there's a virus out there that's, killing anyone other than the typical usual suspects that get killed yearly by respiratory viruses, can you please tell me who it is? Like, you were willing to change everything about your way of life because science told you to this year, or, well, I mean, not science, but public health officials told you to this year, so you're willing to change everything about your way of life, and you're willing to oppress people and watch businesses die, and watch family members not be able to visit their relatives. Like, this is all stuff that you believe. You believe so sincerely in public health and what you're being told by pro-vaccine manufacturers. You believe so sincerely that what they're saying is true, that you're willing to give up all that. What makes you think that 2021 is going to be a better year? What was bad about 2020 for you? You seem pretty comfortable with all this shit. I'm going to try not to swear on this stream, but you seem pretty comfortable with this. So what's going to make 2021 a better year for you, specifically? I'd love to ask this question to this guy. I trust the scientific process of research. It has helped us through the crisis. How? How has it helped us through the crisis? It hasn't stopped anything. We did all the things we were supposed to do. And again, Ivor Cummings, look him up. He's called The Fat Emperor is his website, thefatemperor.com, I believe. And he has done tons of stuff just showing that it did not matter the masking, it did not matter the lockdowns. The curves are exactly the same. With a respiratory virus, I'm going to try and keep it in the camera here. Curves go the same way. They go up, and then they have, I think it's called Gumbert's curve or something on the back end, where once they've already reached the masses, regardless of what you do, because people are all still lining up at Walmart, regardless of what you do, once it's gotten out to the people that are sick are going to get sick, and the people that are not sick are basically going to have a T-cell response, and then you can't even test them for antibiotics. The fact that you get this into your system and your system either fights it off successfully or it's allowed to proliferate says more about you than it does about a virus. It says more about you than it does about a virus. Just so you know. It says more about you in that particular point. It doesn't even have to be how you are all the time. You could just be tired. Do you ever notice that when you go out and you have a particularly stressful day or night, or you party too long, you get sick after? Why is that? Because you had viruses and you had things in your body that were just there. They're always there. They're always in your environment. They're always in the environment. You can't take them out. They're always there. So what changes is you. You change. Something about you changes. And that's why when these elderly people with 2 or 3 comorbidities get the virus, unfortunately, it's able to overwhelm their defenses. And they can't fight it off. So what we should be focusing on is treatments for people that are already sick, not locking down all the people and destroying all the businesses that we know is going to cause more stress, more alcoholism, more physical abuse, all the things that this guy doesn't care about. He doesn't even give it consideration, apparently. I don't know. I don't know how you take this position. It's insane. But this is the position public health has taken this year. But do they have a different priority? Do they have a different agenda, as it were? Yes, they do. Agenda 2030. Well, how do you get all the things that you want from Agenda 2030? You need people to be dependent and subservient. Period. Period. Top-down authority. That's what makes it communistic, okay? Top-down authority will dictate all the things that people need in their lives. And once people have been impoverished and businesses have been destroyed and consolidated into giant players that can make the kind of changes that these people feel are required in order to implement this new system, people can't fight back. You cannot step outside of it. Just yesterday, our Minister of Health came out and said that the vaccination is not going to be mandatory, but you won't be able to work, and you won't be able to go places, and you won't be able to go for dinner or to events unless you get it, unless you have the certificate that says that you've been vaccinated. It's not mandatory, but you can't do anything without it. That's the way the future is shaping up to be with Agenda 2030. That's what it's all about. They think they can fix all the problems in the world. And it's not to say that we don't have problems in the world. Of course we have problems in the world. And do we need to address them? Sure. But the free market was the best way to address them. And I'm not going to get into that today. One of the positives of the hands, face, space messaging and the lockdowns has been the massive reduction in other respiratory viruses that we'd normally be seeing. Reducing COVID transmission and reducing transmission, that's not true. It's not true. So one virus can be more prolific but you can have multiple viruses in your body at any given time, and one could be more prolific than others. And that's the one that just does people in faster than any of the other viruses. And I'd be willing to guess, I don't know for sure, I'd be willing to guess that a lot of people that would normally get the flu vaccine maybe didn't get it this year. I'm totally speculating. I don't know any evidence about that, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Anyway, this guy believes it wholeheartedly. No question.
Intensive care. I've been doing my normal job. I've not noticed my arm aching at all.
So he's concerned about an achy arm, not what it's doing to his actual physiology. Okay, sorry.
And their relatives having to make the difficult decisions whether they visit them or not. We've had somebody who we had good outcomes. Our outcomes are not quite as good this time. And I think that is why they're sicker, more comorbid. But we are,
people are sicker and more comorbid this year because they are lacking things they would have normally picked up, and regenerative elements, whether it be vitamin D or just getting out and getting fresh air or reducing stressors or all the kinds of things that we know that promote human health have been absolutely suppressed. And the masking has suppressed human health this year. So this guy's saying, hey, we're seeing the second wave of people, and they all have increased comorbidities. That has nothing to do with COVID-19. It has nothing to do with SARS-CoV-2. Okay, it doesn't. It doesn't. It has to do with the public health response. It has nothing to do with the virus itself. So if I'm misspeaking because I'm kind of taking them out of context, I do apologize. I had a whole bunch of stuff I wanted to get to, and let's go to a real expert in this stuff. This is Robert Kennedy Jr., and he's been on this case for, I don't know, a decade, discussing vaccines and vaccine safety, and he knows everything there is to know. He understands the players because he's a lawyer, and he understood the very same type of situation that was happening when it came to regulatory agencies in water. And that's how he got involved in the vaccine thing, because of mercury / thimerosal. Sorry, I usually watch everything at increased speed so I can absorb more. But I just want you to hear some of the things he's going to say here.
Well, the problem with the COVID vaccine, I'll tell you, here's the problem, is they have all these vaccines, and they recognize that it's going to be really hard to get a vaccine that does what people say they think it's going to do. So they have been reducing the standards to make it so that they can pass a vaccine no matter what.
And what they think it's going to do is make it so that they don't have to worry about COVID at all.
Right.
Is that what they're...
If you get a shot, you're protected.
You're good.
And that you're not going to transmit it.
Okay.
And particularly, we want to make sure that the people who are vulnerable, so people with comorbidities and fragile elderly, that it's going to keep them from dying. But what they did is the testing protocols that they're using do not require them to show any of those things. The testing, and I'll tell you how it works. They take 22,000 people and they give them the Pfizer vaccine. And they took 22,000 people and give them a placebo. And then they wait, and it's double blind, so the way it's supposed to work is neither the patients, the subjects, test subject volunteers, or the researchers know who got what.
Okay.
And then you wait till 100 people get sick from COVID. That takes a while because, you have 40,000 people, and it's kind of hard nowadays to get sick from COVID. You're not going to have, you're not going to have the majority of those people exposed. So,
plus, if you had it already, you probably already have an immunity.
After 100 people get sick, they stop the study and look at it. And then they say, how many of those people got the vaccine?
100 people. So they say it's 22,000 to make it sound like really, we know what we're talking about. Look at all these people that we use. We gave it to 22,000 people. Well, they're checking adverse results, number one. And number two, they need to then select out of that group of people, again, out of 100 people, they cap it there and they say, hey, this is a good ratio.
And how many got the placebo?
Okay.
And if 50% of them got the vaccine and 50% of the placebo, it means there's zero efficacy and the vaccine doesn't work. Well, in this case with Pfizer, everybody's excited because they stopped the study when 95 people got sick. And apparently 85 of those people were in the placebo group, which means the vaccine appears to be 90% effective. Here's the problem. The way they measure whether you have COVID is that you have one positive PCR test. You have one positive PCR test and you have one symptom. So that could be a cough, it could be a fever, it could be a chill, it could be a headache. And you have COVID. So what they're testing the vaccine for is not what we want to know. Does it prevent you from dying?
Right.
Does it prevent you from being hospitalized?
Understood.
And we will never know because they have geared back the studies so that to make them, as Peter Toshi, who's the editor of the British Medical Journal, he said this in the New York Times editorial. He said these studies were designed to succeed, so that you cannot fail. So no matter.
I'm going to put this in the chats so that you can go watch this whole video. Because this is really kind of important stuff. You need to understand how they're making they're making the claims that this is efficacious for stopping COVID, and they have no evidence of that. All they said it was 95% efficacious at actually stopping symptoms. So they're testing people. They're waiting until they've got 100 people, 95 people that show that they are COVID positive on a test that is almost meaningless, the PCR test, I assume. I didn't look at the actual study. It could be using a different test. There's one called antigen or something like that. It could be that they're finding what they're calling positive tests, and they're saying out of these 95 people, who has a symptom and who does not. Oh, look, all these people have symptoms and this handful of people do not. That means we stop the symptoms. That says nothing about transmissibility. That's why all the public health agencies are coming out there and they're saying, hey, we need to still do all the things we're doing before. We need to do the social distancing and the masking and the lockdowns of businesses that aren't Walmart and Amazon. And look, they have a different agenda. And it has nothing to do with human health or saving human lives.
How bad the vaccine is, it's going to pass.
Because we want a vaccine.
Even though you could convince yourself that it is. Just for the record, you could convince yourself that it is. It's called willful blindness.
Right.
Everybody wants vaccines so we can restart the economy. The big problem with this vaccine, there's two problems. One is it does not prevent transmission. That means I can get the vaccine.
That's, by the way, the excuse for every vaccination in history previous to this.
And then I get exposed to COVID. I still give COVID to you and everybody on the airplane.
You just don't experience it.
I don't experience it, but it makes it even more dangerous. Because normally,
we would know you have it.
Then I'd stay home and I wouldn't infect anybody. But
so you're sick. You just don't have symptoms, and you're still transmitting the disease. So how does this make sense? And guys like the guy that I just showed you from the UK, he doesn't know that. He doesn't know this. Do you think he's listening to Robert Kennedy? No. Somebody says Robert Kennedy's a conspiracy theorist, and he doesn't listen to anything he has to say. It doesn't even get entertained.
If I'm feeling like $1 million and I become a super spreader, like, Typhoid Mary.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want that, and yet that's what apparently this vaccine does. It stops you from knowing it, but you continue to transmit it. The other problem is that they're only testing them for a month or 2 months. You're not going to see bad side effects until maybe a year out.
Okay, I just wanted one other thing, too. There's been very little evidence that people that are asymptomatic spread. So maybe that's their rationale for it. If you don't experience symptoms, then you're less of a spreader. And the way that disease works is once it proliferates in your body and gets a good foothold, it starts coming out as snot and just virus, air particles, virons that float around and follow you around, which is why you're sick. You should stay home. You should stay home if you're sick. In this modern society, people can't afford to stay home when they're sick. That plays into Agenda 2030. And it plays into all the efforts that they've made to try to keep people working remotely and staying home and minimizing contact. If you actually believe that this thing was dangerous and we needed to stop it, you could make justifications for all the things that they're doing. I just want that to be clear. But if you had that belief that it was dangerous, number one, and number two, you also had other things that you wanted to accomplish, and this was allowing you to accomplish all those other things, why would you not do it? I mean, this is not rocket science. Sorry.
A lot of these, injuries that you get from vaccines have very long incubation periods. Autoimmune disease like diabetes, rheumatoid arthritis, Graves' disease, Crohn's disease, IBS. You won't see these or food allergies.
Yeah, it takes a long time for those to incubate inside of the body and grow up.
And what Pfizer's doing, which is very dishonest, is as soon as it finishes the study, it unblinds it so that everybody knows you got the vaccine, you got the placebo. And then it takes all the people in the placebo group and it gives them the real vaccine. So now we completely are unable to tell.
So how do you tell the long-term effects from the vaccination? You don't know. You don't know because everybody's had it. There is no control group.
Oh, whether there's long-term injuries.
It's like covering your future tracks, kind of.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a trick that they've used in the vaccine industry. That's the same thing they did with the Gardasil vaccine. But it makes it impossible for anybody to ever know whether the reason they're getting sick was because of that vaccine or whether it was just bad luck.
So why is it that we've become so, why is it our government that's giving so much power to these?
Okay, this is really important stuff, and while we've just explained why it doesn't make sense to give people the vaccine and we don't know the long-term effects, let's discuss how this happens. Kudos to Theo Vaughn for doing this.
To these companies and less thoughtfulness to the safety of humanity? Who's...
Yeah, I mean, the problem is the entire sort of medical cartel is now feeding at the tit of big pharma.
Yeah.
So the universities are getting all their money from sponsoring clinical trials. The regulatory agencies have become are subject to what we call regulatory capture. They've become sock puppets for the industry that they're supposed to regulate, and you see that everywhere. I mean, I've been suing regulatory agencies for 40 years, EPA and the state agency that, for example, famously in Louisiana is utterly run by the oil industry and is corrupt. But the corruption is particularly acute in HHS, and the reason for that is that the agencies are really part of the industry. So half of CDC's budget goes to buying and selling vaccines. FDA or FDA, half of its budget comes from the pharmaceutical companies. And with NIH, which is the other big agency, they are collecting tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars on vaccine patents. So they work on the vaccine at the outset. They transfer the patent to Gilead or Pfizer. The Moderna vaccine was completely developed by Tony Fauci. He hands it to a private group. They put $2 billion of federal money into allowing them to develop it. And then Tony Fauci's agency keeps half the profits from the vaccine. Oh, it would be like, I've sued EPA many times for being a captured agency, but, what would it be like if EPA made half of its profits selling coal?
Yeah.
It's the same thing. These agencies are not independent agencies. They're completely captured. And you have, all of the other institutions of government that should stand between a greedy corporation and a vulnerable child have been compromised. Congress gets more money, lobbying money from the pharmaceutical industry than any other.
Yeah, I made a lot of these points in a video I did the other day. But John F. Kennedy is legit. He knows his stuff. He's been fighting this and filing lawsuits for, like I said, his entire career. He has been a crusader for true human health for his entire career. And the minute he started talking about the potential dangers and questionable nature of the studying of whatever outcomes from vaccination, the minute he did that, he became an outcast for society. He became a conspiracy theorist.
Their industry, they give them double what oil and gas. I'm talking about lobbyists. There's more pharma lobbyists on Capitol Hill than there are congressmen, senators, and Supreme Court justices combined. The regulatory agencies have been captured. The press is utterly captured, and that's because in 1997, we passed a law in this country, or FDA, changed the regulation to make it legal for the first time for television and radio and newspapers to advertise pharmaceutical products on the air, direct-to-consumer pharmaceuticals.
When was that? What year was that?
That was 97. So there's only 2 countries in the world that allow that. Everybody agrees it's a terrible thing to do.
Oh, and it's half of our commercials now as well.
Well, Roger Ailes, who founded Fox, told me that there are 22 commercials on his average evening news show, and 17 of those are pharmaceutical.
Wow. Oh, yeah. I'm just trying to get through half a Family Guy, and next thing you know, I have HIV by the end of the day.
Okay, so...
You know what I'm saying? It's just like the fear. And a lot of it's fear, too. And they give you pictures of like, oh, here's a happy family, but you might have this looming in the distance,
Yeah.
You might have
Kevin
scoliosis.
Nealon said that he wanted to do one of those ads where they list all these horrible things from the side effects, and the people are walking around happy and laughing, playing football. He said he just wants to do one of those ads where people are actually acting out the side effects.
That would be so good.
Incidentally, there's been a bunch of people putting out YouTube videos and stuff on Facebook talking, like, pretending they have, like, they're getting these wild side effects from taking the vaccine, which wouldn't be exactly what Robert Kennedy is saying, because have you ever seen the list? Of course you have. You've seen the list of all the potential side effects from doing these things. So one of the things he referred to in that was this. This is from the BMJ. Associate Editor Peter Doshi put this out on the October the 21st. And he's just talking about what's going on, how these have been designed to succeed. The ongoing phase 3 trials for COVID-19 vaccines are some of the most consequential randomized trials ever done. In September, following months of campaigning for greater openness, 4 manufacturers made their full study protocols publicly available. The publications create a rare opportunity for real-time transparency in which the conduct of clinical trials is open to public scrutiny while the studies are still underway, which it doesn't happen very often. Whatever the results ultimately show, public release of these protocols, each over 110 pages containing far greater detail than was previously available, enables a more scientific, deliberate, and inclusive trial process. While protocol transparency is not new and is already common for high-impact trials, transparency in real time is an important development and a great win for public trust. We may not like what we read, but with real-time sharing of full protocols comes an unprecedented space for translating critique into action to improve trial design midstream, and there is much to critique. The first question is whether the right endpoints are being studied. Contrary to prevailing assumptions, including those of former Food and Drug Administration Commissioner, none of the vaccine trials are designed to detect a significant reduction in hospital admissions, admission to intensive care, or death. We're told over and over again, like by our fellow at the hospital, that this is about stopping people from dying. None of these trials are showing that. None of them. Rather than studying severe disease, these mega trials all set a primary endpoint of symptomatic COVID, of essentially any severity. A laboratory positive result plus mild symptoms such as cough and fever count as outcome events. These studies seem designed to answer the easiest question in the least amount of time, not the most clinically relevant questions. We shouldn't be surprised. Regulators not only agree with these endpoints, but have pre-specified the success criterion of 50% efficacy against the primary endpoint with the confidence interval that includes efficacy as low as 30%. So they're just basically saying, as long as it works a little bit, we're going to want to give these to all the people anyways. And then what's going to matter is just giving it to the most amount of people. That's all they want to try to figure out. That's all they're trying to do. Okay, so like they're not trying to stop the pandemic. They're not trying to stop transmissibility. None of the stuff about these vaccines that they're telling us that we're going to need to take in order to protect the public are actually protecting the public. Does that seem sensible to you? Again, I will go back to saying this. If the idea is that people who are symptomatic are the only ones who transmit the virus because you need to have mucus or sneezing or virons coming out of your breath in significant amounts in order to affect somebody that can be infected, then I guess, but again, we need to look at what is going on with who is being affected by this. Why not just give it? No, there is no, again, mRNA, we're going to go into what that means. But this doesn't make sense, no matter how you slice it, unless, of course, there's an alternate agenda, which there is, which is Agenda 2030. That's what this is all about. This is about destroying small businesses and consolidating all of the businesses into ones that can be controlled and ones that through which they can enforce their mandates, which they think are just as important of being able to assist in the reduction of climate change and assist in the reduction of what they call white supremacy, which is built into everything, which needs to be addressed through direct legislation, which is what they're all saying that they want to do. And just go to the World Economic Forum website, YouTube site, and you just like look at the headlines of the seminars these people are giving. It's so obvious what they're doing. But this is all, and never mind the fact that this mRNA is totally unproven technology. Everything that they're doing is about something else. It's a misdirection in order to achieve a goal that they already had. Okay, so this is the shock doctrine to the nth degree. Okay, this is an interesting article. I'm going to put, oh shoot, I should have put the last one. Oh well. Well, you know what I'll do? Is I'll put this one in the chat. And you can go read this one. It's also interesting, and it's also about social justice, interestingly. He talks about how some people are being disproportionately affected, which is people, black. I don't even want to. I don't want to say the wrong thing here because I don't want to be taken out of context. But for black people and Latin people, basically people with darker skin color, because there's an element of COVID that has to do with vitamin D deficiency, and you can look that up. I've talked about it in previous videos. This is Dr. James Lyons. And he's no joke. He's totally independent. He basically just he's like a watchdog, or he has been for the last several years. And I just want you to listen to this bit, please. This is really key.
So those people who would like to add...
Just for the record, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this YouTube channel? Why am I doing this live stream? Because I feel like people aren't sure where to look, including myself. There has been an overload of information coming out about this thing. And, I mean, it's difficult to know who to listen to or what to listen to when we are, by our nature, inclined to side with authority. But when that authority has been compromised, I think that we need to talk about it. And that's why I'm wearing this Festivus shirt. I don't know if you see it. Hey, hang on. I can get you on the naughty list. So there you go. I got the Christmas spirit. Let's listen to what Mr. Lyons has to say. Or does he prefer Mr. Weiler?
Coronavirus vaccine mandates to our society's response have to understand a few things. First of all...
He talks fast. I'm gonna put it down to a regular speed because he is a fast talker. This guy's very smart. I really appreciate his intellect.
It's a disproportionate response given the rate of mortality. If you're not over 70 years old, you have less of a chance of dying of coronavirus than you do from influenza, thank goodness. However, if you want to mandate coronavirus vaccines, understand that you're going to, if you're a medical physician, hear me well, if you want to reject 21% of your patients, and that's a low number, that's a lowball number, if you want to kick 21% of your patients out of your practice, be my guest, those patients are probably better off without you. So the estimates of coverage that are required to be needed to protect the population from vaccine herd immunity are that, and this comes from Paul Off at the Children's Hospital over in Philadelphia, efficacy rates as high as 50% and coverage rates as high as 75%. The Pew report from the other day, a poll says that 51% of the population do not want this vaccine. They won't take it. Not just that they won't be the first to line up, they won't take it. How are we going to get to 75% with only 51%? Well, we need a much more efficacious coronavirus vaccine. It is imperative that we do not discount prior immunity in the population from prior exposure to coronavirus-like viruses or to coronavirus itself. And if you look at the infection fatality rate, not the case fatality rate, where you get a diagnosis. You take the symptomatics and the asymptomatics and put it together, the statistic that was published in May was less than influenza. The press has learned that, yes, we're going to have a problem with long-sustained antibodies. But we've known that for coronaviruses from 1990. It's not new.
Which made them the perfect target for a new rollout and PR campaign for mRNA viruses, or Freudian slip, mRNA technology that aims to be therapeutic technology done on an individualized, catered, bespoke basis, depending upon your genes, which they're going to be able to identify and say, this is going to work better for you, this is going to work better for you. This is all about unrolling a new era of vaccinations to reprogram your DNA. Not change it, but reprogram the way that it works. And I'm not going to get too heavily into that because I don't fully understand it, even though I'm trying my best. But I'm just not that smart. But the point is that he just said it, that we know that people get colds like every year. It's not long-lasting immunity. So it's the perfect candidate for them to make the argument now that, first of all, you have to get this vaccination every year. And second of all, they're going to need to open up this whole new industry, and it's going to provide valuable feedback for the interactions. Imagine 7 to 8 billion people now are going to be mandated to take these vaccinations, and they're going to be crunching all of that data. What does that do for the very rich in society? Well, it's going to make it pretty good pool of people for them to look at to see what works and what doesn't work. So it doesn't matter how many people it hurts. This is all about making the drug industry better so that the people who can really afford it will be able to live in amortality, which is different than immortality. Immortality suggests you live forever. Amortality suggests that you would live forever unless you get hit by a car or a bus, which there will be none of on the road driven by human beings anymore. Anyway, in like 10 years. So what is 2030 about? That's about basically making people that can live forever, and this seems to be a giant program for developing these new mRNA vaccines that they think are going to provide gene therapy treatments for cancer and for all different types of things, maybe even be able to alter the expression of your DNA so that you can account for various traits. Like, this is, as far as I can tell, this is not about helping anyone, and we've shown that. So what is it about? It's about achieving Agenda 2030, which is control for the people at the top, essentially, and also greater drugs and therapies for them. But this is not about protecting people. It's not going to stop transmission, as far as they can tell. Unless, of course, you make the argument that it's transmitted by snot or whatever. In which case, there was no need for the lockdown whatsoever. People that were sick should just stay home. Oh, but you know, we can't trust people. That's a public health position, by the way. That's the way they think about people.
The press.
And they're not wrong. Okay? They're not wrong. So the reason I called this channel, or I'm going to call this channel Blindspot Corner, and the reason I'm calling my podcast Blindspot Corner is because it is a dual meaning. It is a dual meaning. One being that I'm trying to point at the blind spots that other people have, but I also have my own blind spots, and I welcome conversation. I would like anyone and everyone to comment, ask me questions, and I'd be happy to try to answer them if I can.
Press has reported that.
And if I can't, here's the thing about me. You know I'm going to go look into it and try to find out an answer, and maybe I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can.
The press now, and thank you for doing this, has reported that we have memory B cells and memory T cells in response to coronavirus. So our bodies will remember how to be immune to these coronaviruses without having to carry around antibodies to everything we've ever been exposed of, expressing those proteins in our body all the time. That would be metabolically unsustainable. It's not how human bodies work. It's not how mammalian bodies work. So this mystery of public health officials not working to reduce concern can only be seen as political, and please join me in condemning that. Our reaction to coronavirus has already been worse than the virus itself. A terrorist could never succeed as well at shutting down businesses with a bomb in the United States as we have by this ridiculous, inaccurate testing. Dr. Singhang Lee from Milford, Connecticut, published a study that showed that the reference samples that are used to validate the COVID-19 test, 30% were false positives. When he sequenced the PCR product, 40% were false negatives. What are we doing with PCR testing? And if you test everyone in a population with a CT scan, you're going to find cancers in everyone, and you're going to do biopsies on everyone at a rate where you're going to end up doing a lot of harm.
So the point is to increase business. This is a business proposition that's happening right now.
Every person that has a false positive rate, when the infection rates are low, and there's something like 2% active infection, maybe maximum, per year with coronavirus across the United States right now. We're going to have far more false positives, even if the false positive rate is just 1%. What does that lead to? It leads to contact tracing with those 14 people that you saw in the mall the other day. You're shutting down those 14 businesses. Bomb after bomb after bomb after bomb, shutting down our economy. That's cruel. And then on top of it, we're bringing quaternary ammonium compounds into schools. I'm going to spell a name for you.
This is pretty important too. I'm going to let him get into it, but what he's saying is that this is about political agenda. This is about Agenda 2030.
Rubec. Terry Rubec. The H is not pronounced. Terry Rubec. She did studies of these cleaners that we're bringing into the schools, and we're spraying all over the schools every day or every week to fight coronavirus. She found in mice neural tube defects to the rate of 15% of the pups, and a reduction in the reproductive capacity of both male and female mice of 50% with these they're called quats. Look them up. I just did an Unbreaking Science episode, look at hashtag Unbreaking Science. I interviewed Dr. Rubik yesterday. What are we doing to our children? Exposing them to these cleaners that might shut down their reproduction, that might harm their immune systems, that might cause their children for 2 generations to be less reproductively capable, for 2 generations to have neural tube defects.
Have you noticed that our ability to reproduce has been going down steadily in the Western world, but not so much in the developing world? Where they're not using all this shit all the time. Have you noticed that? What does Bill Gates always go on about? Not to condemn poor Billy Gates. I mean, he's been taking a lot of slack for his positions on trying to save the world. But he is very concerned with population all the time. I'm going to show you one more thing that's in regards to the idea of population and population control and reducing population, because that's another big thing that seems to be going on. And I didn't pull it up here, but now that I'm watching this, I realize that I want to do that. And I have it right here. So, you may have heard of former Pfizer vice president, which he might have been vice president of a division of Pfizer, so people are, splitting hairs with that. And scientific director, which he was, of a division. Dr. Michael Yeadon and German lung specialist and parliamentarian Dr. Wolfgang Wodarg have filed an urgent application with the European Medical Agency calling for immediate suspension of all SARS-CoV-2 vaccine studies, particularly the BioNTech's Pfizer study, and that's for the mRNA vaccines. What's wrong? The formation of so-called non-neutralizing antibodies can lead to an exaggerated immune reaction, especially when the test person is confronted with the real wild virus after vaccination. This so-called antibody-dependent amplification, ADE, has long been known from experiments with corona vaccines in cats. For example, in the course of these studies, all cats that initially tolerated the vaccination well died after catching the wild virus. Am I saying that that's what's going on, that there's a wild conspiracy to try to kill people? No, I'm sure it's gotten better. This new technology, they pumped a lot of money and research into this stuff. But there is something else that's very interesting. Read this. The vaccinations are expected to produce antibodies against spike proteins of SARS-CoV-2. However, spike proteins also contain synctin homologous proteins, which are essential for the formation of the placenta in mammals such as humans. It must be absolutely ruled out that a vaccine against SARS-CoV-2 could trigger an immune reaction against Synctin-1, as otherwise infertility of indefinite duration could result in vaccinated women. And the much too short duration of the study does not allow for a realistic estimation of late effects, which is more that Robert Kennedy was saying. Oh, hello. I'm not going to let you read that because that's personal. So, Dr. James Weiler. So that's what he's talking about. There's potential cytokine storms, is what they call it. When people have a very negative reaction after initially testing positive and showing antibody production. He talks about antivirals. Okay, so he basically is saying that we should treat people. Yeah, we should treat sick people. We should get better at treating sick people. Instead of mass inoculating the entire world, we should figure out what's wrong with people that are sick, that are not reacting well to SARS-CoV-2, and we should figure out how to treat those people. That seems like a no-brainer. Way cheaper, by the way. Way cheaper to treat people who are sick than to treat people who are not sick with a totally unproven new area of vaccination that aims to reprogram your cells. And what does that mean? This is from NIH. This is from March 2013. Unlocking the mysteries of extracellular RNA communication.
Unlocking the mysteries of extracellular RNA communication.
So this is saying that, hey, this is so recent. It's only been for, like, when you look into this stuff, it's only been going on for like the last decade or two.
DNA, the blueprint of life, produces smaller molecules called RNA unique to each kind of cell. RNA translates the genes encoded in DNA into proteins and regulates which proteins are made.
I really have no idea how the sound is coming off on this thing. It sounds fine in my headphones, and my mic level looks low. So I'm really hoping that this comes out right. I guess it's a test run, so we'll only see how this comes out. I mean, it's episode number 1. I want to convince people that I'm really sure about everything that I'm going on because, you know, people want to hear answers. They don't want somebody that's just going to go, oh, I'm not really sure, but think about this and think about this. They don't want that. They don't want to think about it. They want easy answers. And I totally sympathize with that. I want easy answers too, but there are no easy answers in life, and there's very little easy answers in health. But there is agendas.
Through regulation of genes and proteins, RNA controls the function of cells.
Just for the record, agendas think they're solutions. So that's hubris.
Often in long-lasting or permanent ways. Until recently, RNA was thought to exert its influence only on the cell that produces it. However, we've now learned that these powerful controllers can travel between cells and tissues, altering cells at a distance. Extracellular RNAs, or xRNAs, travel in body fluids including fluids surrounding the brain and spinal cord, urine, and blood. The extent to which these xRNAs control cell behavior is not well understood. Recent research shows that healthy cells make different xRNAs than diseased cells. What if a cancer cell instructs a normal cell to become cancerous? Could we block cancer by blocking the xRNAs?
That's what's being proposed right now for mRNA vaccines. They are trying to block cellular communication by RNA that infects cells, and they're trying to put like a stopgap in the way that it spreads from cell to cell to cell. But how do they do that? This I'm still not 100% clear on. But why can't I ask the question? Why can't we just ask questions about this kind of stuff? Why can't we have straight answers? Do they really think it's over the head of most people? Is that it? It's just over the head of most people, and so they don't feel like they need to explain it? No, this is about they're learning too, and now they have a pool of over 7 billion people from which to learn from, and they're going to crunch all that data because they can do it now because they have computers that powerful. None of this stuff was available before. It was never tried before. This is only fairly new technology, and the fact is that we're all guinea pigs now.
What if scientists could harness the communication powers of xRNA to turn a diseased cell back into a healthy one? Scientists may be able to use xRNAs as new treatments for disease. They may also be able to use xRNAs to diagnose diseases earlier than currently possible. This new avenue of research holds enormous promise to understand a myriad of diseases and develop novel therapeutics. Our goals are to understand xRNAs and unlock the transformative potential that this new area of research holds for human health, disease diagnosis, and treatment.
So that's what this is. This is a giant PR rollout for the new mRNA technology, and they're not even concerned with potential side effects or negative effects because they're going to measure them all. This seems to me to be the biggest pool of guinea pigs in the history of the world, and that's what this is all about, in my opinion. I did post that in the chat, and I'm going to post one more thing in the chat that if you are so inclined, you can go and read. It is a great article that's basically talks about why, if you educate yourself about this stuff, you can explain in a rational and cogent way why mandatory vaccinations are pointless with this new mRNA vaccination. And it's because the old reasoning for herd immunity is no longer valid. And that goes back to what I was talking about with if people are spreading and are asymptomatic, they would still be spreading asymptomatically. And so this doesn't make sense even on the face of it, unless of course you're just trying to stop like a runny nose And if people get a runny nose and they believe in vaccine technology and they believe this new vaccine is going to make it so that they can't spread stuff, which is not, by the way, it's not true. There's an interesting article I put up in another video that I did the other day about the WHO talking about the fact that right now in the developing world, they're trying to stop all the vaccine-induced strains of measles that are going around and whooping cough. So they're giving people something, and there's a lot more that I would like to say about this, but I'm getting already an hour and 10 minutes, and I'm going to try to keep this about an hour. I'm going to try to do it every other day if I can. My wife was nice enough to take out the boys, so that's why it's kind of quiet, relatively speaking. Excuse me. But this is a really interesting article to try to understand why that is what I just said. I did want to kind of read some of this stuff, but it's going to take me an hour to go through this and basically pull out this stuff that I wanted to read. So I just want to read this one more thing to you. And it's a post that I made on July 3rd. So if you'll indulge me just a little bit, because I think I'm so special. The only thing special about me is that I'm not sure about anything. Okay? That's why I want to call this Blindspot Corner, because, hey, I'm open to being told I'm wrong. But at least give me the respect to explain it to me if I'm wrong. What they are doing right now with public outreach is terrible. There is simply nothing that they have done that has made this, or people that were what you want to call vaccine hesitant before, that has made them feel less vaccine hesitant. This has actually is divided people, and they write articles like, "Oh, it's the new anti-vaccine nationalism," try to tie it to like racism or something stupid like that. Not that there isn't racists, there are racists out there, but tying everything to racism is stupid. It means nothing is racism. But ideologues don't care. So, July 3rd. I'm going to try to read this and then I will wrap up. I've been thinking about it because without serious introspection and consideration, there is no means to grow. It's going to sound bleak, but I would appreciate it if you could stick around until the end, because I have propositions for solutions. And I think I never did really get around to that proposition. But that's me, it's my ADD or whatever. So here it is for all who wish to know who I am and what I think, including myself, my label. So the reason I'm putting this up there is to just try to tell people that I'm not on the right, I'm not on the left. I came out of the left when I became politically aware. That's where I originally started thinking about things, and then I've drifted more to the right, or should I say conservative ideas. But anything that was liberal before now is considered being on the right side of the spectrum, which is another part of the way that society has kind of gone completely nuts. Oh. Sorry, and let me just to clarify how I think and why I think what I think. And, I think people should know where they stand on certain issues, because if you don't actually have an opinion, you can't have an opinion unless you actually go and study something. And I've studied lots of different things at this point. I like reading on a variety of topics. Vaccination is one. Climate change is another. Just corruption of pharmaceutical companies is another. The corruption of power is another. Psychology. Why people think the way that they think. All kinds of stuff. I just like reading, and I like learning, and I like listening to lectures and debates, because I'm weird, I guess. My label: center-right libertarian, impartial cynic, classical liberal romanticist, techno-utopian enthusiast, tempered with Luddite apprehensions and Christian moral egalitarianism. Center and classical liberal because it's good to speak openly and honestly, and it's good to spread the wealth, but not haphazardly or built around historical injustices, because, while they're good to know and well worthy of reading about and acknowledging, they are hardly capable of determining a person's worth. Any truly free thinker should be insulted to be viewed as part of a group, when it is not a group that determines your worth. That's straight up racism or classism or bigotry. Take your pick depending on the context, and unfortunately it's led to a grief industry that exploits these ideas to obtain power. They don't really care about you. They care about their cause, and to justify a cause, you must be dogmatic, demagogic, and even more radical than the ones who laid the foundations of your movement, because little wins tend to be misattributed to the cause and not simply the times, as appears to be the case in most instances. That is to say that as society evolves and gets older, some of the things that appealed to people in the past don't appeal to people anymore, and that's just because of greater connectivity, and that's greater exposure to different ideas and cultures and whatnot. And to claim that we need to change everything about society because we are more aware of this stuff, it's a way of dealing with issues that you see coming out of the edges of society, and applying them to the whole because you're actually just an ideologue. They're doing the same thing with healthcare right now. So, they don't really care about you. They care about their cause, and to justify a cause, you must be dogmatic, demagogic, and even more radical than the ones who lay the foundations of your movement, because little wins tend to be misattributed to the cause and not simply the times, as appears to be the case in most instances. These much-lauded misperceptions inevitably lead to more perceived accolades that pervert the intentions of the original, often justified beginnings. So that's to say that people that come out with these causes and fight for various rights and ideas and putting an end to bad things, they're usually good people that start with the best of intentions. It's the causes that gets perverted over time. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. I am decidedly anti-violence. Yes, which is why I'm vigorously pro-free speech. I am anti-war, but I also understand history is what it is, and we cannot change the past. To suggest one group exploited another or one group is far more egregious in its historical dealings than another is to not know enough about the whole of human history. That's racism when you say that only white people are capable of being cruel, or only white people are capable of building a society that embodies white supremacist ideas. Look, in the Western world, a lot of things that are attributed to white supremacy are actually just majority privilege. They're just majority privilege. There was a group of people here that built the country based on ideas that came from another country, and they were the majority. They were the first ones here, and everybody else was a minority. And so does that mean that they in some way are abusing their power? No, it just means that more of the wins go to them because there is more of them. So you cannot make definitions about power and the past based on the present. It doesn't compute. I'm sure that I'm not making a lot of sense to a lot of people, but let's be honest, 5 people might watch this anyways. And nobody's getting this far. I wish they would. I just want to have a conversation. That's all I want is a conversation. To suggest that because of this historical injustice, human beings need to be fundamentally changed or altered to be better is to again not understand that this is a concept that has been attempted repeatedly and always fails, because it does not recognize that without autonomy, humans will never be satisfied, even if they are able to be misled for a time, maybe even for good reasons. We are all susceptible to lust for power. This is an inherent weakness, and people in the center wish new ideas to be debated, not mandated, for all the right reasons. More freedom, not less. More autonomy, not more bureaucracy. I see myself as a romanticist because I think humans can be wonderful and caring and loving and thoughtful, and we have tremendous potential. But it needs to be properly nourished and cultivated. Misanthropes seem to be projectionists who tend to see themselves as the cure to the human disease, and that in all of its in and of itself I see as evil, hence the Christian morality. And I'm not Christian, I'm agnostic. I was raised Catholic. I don't go to church, but I do see that there's a lot of interesting things that were built by the Magna Carta came out of it, and the Constitution and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms, that all emanates from Christian ideals. It does. It just does. Misanthropes seem to be projectionists who tend to see themselves as the cure to human disease, and that in and of itself I see as evil, hence the Christian morality. Yeah, if you think that human beings are the problem to everything, and the only thing you can do is try to control human beings, that's evil. That's evil. You're not giving people enough credit or agency, in my opinion. I don't think they are necessarily doing it with deliberate malice, but because there is, of course, plenty to criticize. But the application of logic needs to be tempered with the acquiescence to the ability to corrupt the human soul and mind, and if we wish to correct the problem, it needs to start at home, with structured family values that support the growth of all the individuals in the household. This is the only true way to support the growth of a human being. Yes. Raise your children. Do it the right way. Make sacrifices. Life is hard. If somebody else does all the hard work for you, you don't learn, and your children don't learn from your example. This seems to be pretty base knowledge. When do we lose it? The only true way to support the growth of a human being. Family values that support the growth of all the individuals in the household. This is the only way to, and that's not just the children, it's the parents as well. This is the only true way to support the growth of a human being. We require investment in patience and rationality to be displayed whenever possible. To suggest that we can be molded into better people by creating the right conditions is an appealing way to think. But ultimately, without admitting it is the family that creates those conditions and not the state, we will make too many excuses that create too many dependents at both the bottom and the top of the scale. So this affects society all throughout. It doesn't pick winners and losers, even though it tends to be families tend to stay together in the kind of higher echelons. But that's often related to religion, which we're getting rid of. People can be trapped by wealth just as much as they can by poverty, and the incentives with which they live their lives and raise their children can screw up kids on either end. This is my egalitarian view. As above, so below. Without strong roots, the tree cannot grow. Without a strong foundation, the structures on top are bound to collapse. I was a techno-utopianist before it was cool. I loved the idea of the Venus Project and TZM, which is the Zeitgeist movement. I acknowledge that the advances of AI and robotics and automation are going to fundamentally change our role on the planet, but I also understand it will leave a lot more people out of the fold than in. We need to think very seriously about this. I respect those who do, and I think it needs far more attention in modern day society, but the problem seems to be that we are fed garbage day in and day out by our media, who claim to be concerned about us, and then turn around to sell us crap to fill the empty void they leave in our psyche by never really engaging us with ideas in a serious way. And again, this is the communication problem of public health. You can blame this on consumerism if you want, but first look in the mirror. How have you engaged with reality today? Did you pick up a book to learn something useful, or did you turn on Netflix and fire up your game console? Both of which I like to do. We all need to relax a little bit, right? I haven't been playing very many games for years since I've been a father, but hey man, it's fun. I get it. My kids, I bought them the Lego Avengers game for PlayStation 3, which is the last one that I bought. And they love it. And I started, I downloaded, I have two PS3s, so there's one that they play upstairs, and then there's one down here in the basement with the big screen that they obviously like to play on. So I downloaded a copy. They've been playing it upstairs, and they've unlocked all the people and the places and things. So they'd like the free play. They just like to change characters all the time. That's like their favorite thing to do, because kids are insatiable. They just want more and more and more, and just unlocking a new character is the greatest thing to them. So and they obviously know that. They build that into video games on purpose, especially those Lego games. They know that. We know what motivates people to do stuff and be interested to buy stuff. We know. There's been tons of social psychology, okay? So it's when you exploit that social psychology that it becomes a problem. But you have to look. I see both sides of the argument. The point is that there has to be balance. Did you turn on Netflix or fire up your game console? Did you spend your time thinking about the hardship being faced in Yemen or in Africa or in the slave wage shops around the world that produce your many luxuries? Typo. There has to be balance. The truth is, without the family to support and foster the ability to suppress the urge to consume, both for satiation of the ego and of the spirit, we long to be loved and supported and accepted for who we are. And without the family to give you that ground level of support, people look for it outside in whatever form they can find it. Drugs, gangs, ideologies, video games, porn, affairs, mindless entertainment, consumerism, and yes, power. Lest you think I'm preaching, I am not. This is a confession as much as it is a thought exercise to present what I have been thinking about and feeling over the course of many years of searching. But before I started investing more time into my own growth, I was all of the above, and I was a lost soul. I still am, I suppose, and that is the human condition. I can think all day and read wonderful books and listen to enlightening speakers, but it doesn't take away my desires for the same thing that most people desire, which is to say my momentary pleasures to uplift my mood. I am faulted, but I also accept that it's okay because I am trying every day to be a little bit better. We are social animals, and we will find the thing that fills our hearts and minds, but that can only truly start at home because everything else is satiation after the fact. It is filling the void of the thing we crave the most, acceptance. Come on, you know it's true. We need to be built from the strong from the foundation, not as part of it. Okay, so if you just make more dependent people, it doesn't matter how much money you have or how many public health agencies you have. If you don't have strong people that are built at home, on the home base, that are capable thinking people, that's a problem. That's a problem. You need to have a strong foundation, and then you go out into the world, and you make the world better with your place in it. Lastly, the Luddite in me fears change, but not because it's coming, but because right now, in this world, in this place, we are being told by the people who have been thinking about the future that we need to change the way the world works. We need surveillance and connectivity and ever greater transmission speeds to achieve these goals. We need 5G, which many activists have suggested is far more dangerous than we're being told. Have you looked into it? You can start here. I'm just going to post this actual post in the chat. And then you can go check out those links if you want. That's Deborah Davis, if I'm not mistaken, Dr. Deborah Davis. We are being told that we need to be supervised in order to improve our condition, which is now going to be fundamentally altered, but at what cost? In fact, we need a whole new kind of medical intervention, one that will change our very DNA. It doesn't actually change our DNA. Our DNA changes the same, but it changes the way that our DNA creates molecules that express our immune function. And that's why it's therapeutic, and that's why it's totally, this is all a new horizon. This is all the event horizon, after which we become something that is not human anymore, because we're not altering with natural responses. We're changing the actual biological response of ourselves. In fact, we're told a whole new kind of medical intervention, one that will change our very DNA because we were born flawed, and in order to become the new improved humankind, peoplekind, we need to accept that we are part of the collective, and to rebel against this direction is only to delay the inevitable. Who gave these people the right to tell me what to do? Who gave them the right to tell me what to think and what ideas can be endorsed and which ones need to be relegated to the dustbin of history, which at the same time is being used as the leverage to entice people into achieving this new and improved world? I've spoken of useful idiots, and I can try to tell you it's not meant to be derogatory, that it's just a label that I'm using to cut right to the point, which is this: all you environmentalists are right. We need to protect not our only home. We need to protect our only home. We need to be better stewards. But that will never come from the top in the way that ideologues think it will. Communism has a history of mass death, even if it starts out promising utopia. If you try to tell people they are useless eaters and that they need to learn to live with less, not to be able to strive for the wonderful things that are available to be purchased if we can just find the right path to success, often through the very bureaucratic governing boards and administrative classes that are meant to be the stewards of our societies, then you are missing the point, which is to come to a realization. I won't bother to go into it, but ask Bill Gates. There's too many people. Bill Gates thinks there's too many people. He has a real issue with all the people. He wants less people. Go look up Bill Gates TED Talk, Innovating to Zero. I think that's what it's called. Let's just find it. He thinks there's too many people. Bill Gates TED. Oh. TED Talk. Innovating to Zero. Just and just for fun, I'll post this in the.
Hi, I'm Dr. Amy.
I have gone over this video many times before. Well, not many, but a couple times in the videos that I've posted that are pre-produced. But this is live. We're doing it live! Screw it, we're doing it live! This is more fun, isn't it? Well, it is for me. We'll see if anybody else thinks so. What are you willing to give up to gain some protections against the inevitable destruction of our planet? So you have been propagandized. What are you willing to give up to gain some protections against the inevitable destruction of our planet? So we're told. So you have been propagandized for years by people who are now enacting a plan that will remove your bodily autonomy and your right to learn about and work towards your own and your family's best health outcomes. If you think the mandated vaccines are going to be the only thing that will change when it comes to our ability to deal with our own health, then you are not paying attention. You will lose if you are one of the outclassed your access to clean food and properly and sustainably grown meat, which incidentally is one of the best ways forward to combat climate change and resource depletion. More on that later. I don't know if I ever did get more. There's a book called Cows Save the Planet. There's a book called The Vegetarian Myth. You need to understand that soil depletion is one of the biggest problems that we face. And if you can fix the soil, it sequesters carbon from the air. I'm not going to get into it further, and I don't think I did on this post, which is why I'm saying it now. You will probably lose access to supplements in favor of pharmaceutical panaceas. If you've been paying attention, there's been an awful lot of attempt to muddy the waters over the last few years about the effectiveness of supplements for healthcare. It started with Rockefeller medicine that systematically destroyed the ability of holistic and natural medicine to compete. A decent primer, but by no means the whole story, and there's another link there. If you have cancer, there will likely be one or two universally approved options for treatment for the masses, and something quite different from the rich ownership class, who will most likely achieve immortality within the next couple of years. Yes, more life for them, less access for you. Not to mention, how many lives are you willing to sacrifice for this new religion? And it is a religion. It is. Have you even thought about it? Do you have the Bill Maher opinion when it comes to life? Quote, people who've earned it deserve to die, remarking, kill the right people. I'm pro-choice, I'm for assisted suicide, I'm for regular suicide, I'm for whatever gets the freeway moving. That's what I'm for, said Maher, adding, it's too crowded, the planet is too crowded, and we need to promote death. And I put that link there. I think the very rich have, meaning promoted death. In fact, look up eugenics, and I'm sure it seems like all the things that you're going to lose that I've just mentioned. It sure seems like all the things that you are going to lose that I've just mentioned and all the things that will be mandated will help achieve their goals. Yes. Equality in this case does not mean more for everything. I think that probably should say everyone. Equality in this case does not mean more for everyone. It does not mean raising everyone's living standards. It means the opposite. And if you're being even remotely intellectually honest, you know it. I suppose maybe you think if you lick enough boots, you'll be one of the lucky ones. Just don't hold your breath. All you social justice warriors are right. There have been many historical injustices, and there is inequality in the world. But the people who you keep putting into power to achieve your goals are working within a system that only becomes more dysfunctional with every progressive application of ideology. And again, the people who have the power and have been thinking with good reason about the future and where humanity is going have advocated these struggles within society. Perhaps that's been the plan all along. I suggest you look up Clower Piven, Agenda 2030 SDGs, The Great Reset from the World Economic Forum. When was this? June, July? These people are using your sentimentalities against you and have been propagandizing you for years because everyone just loves to point the finger at someone else and say, it's not me, it's them who are the problem. And if we can only take care of them, then we will all be better off. It's really quite schizophrenic. Do you really think people who promote this kind of thinking will stop once they achieve the goal, once they achieve total domination against dissent? That's where we're going right now. Unless you're completely ignorant, you see it and you know it. The only question is, have you thought about it seriously? None of what I'm saying is controversial. It's all right there in your face. And so that's what I think and why. Feel free to tell me where I've gotten it wrong. But first, let me tell you how I think we can hopefully do something about this. We need to be humble. We need to be honest enough to say, there are things I don't know, but here's my best understanding. Let's talk to some experts and view the available options. We have to admit, because we tend towards intellectual laziness, that simply deferring to authority when we engage in conversations, that there are also things that the establishment doesn't know. They have plenty of answers, but almost none are definitive. The minute someone tells you that there are consensuses on any given issue, question the source. Who is funding them? What organization? What interests do they have that are being fulfilled by advocating their own positions? What are their stated goals? I have found a number of people I trust, at least that I feel don't have conflicts of interest. We used to understand this was a real problem. It is more than ever. Realize it. Holy cow. Oh, I'm close. Okay. When it comes to food production and climate change and the need for humans to be engaged in their work, I believe that people of the ilk of Joel Salatin are headed in the right direction. Smaller farms, greater care, more expertise, and holistic farming. If you don't like meat, don't eat it. But we are animals and omnivores. It's just reality. If you have moral objections to this, I highly recommend The Vegetarian Myth by Leah Keith. Actually read it. Don't just take the lazy route and look for someone to provide you with the confirmation biases. You need to ignore it, which is what people do. So they don't have to think about it. Just admit it. Just be humble and say, hey, maybe I don't know. Maybe somebody out there that's saying something that is outside of my understanding is actually saying it for a reason. Maybe they know something I don't know. Maybe they know. I don't have any motivation for doing this other than, well, I'll be perfectly honest. I would like to do this every other day so that I can just basically talk about what's going on and bring on some clips and bring on some things. And if that could be my job, and moving forward, very few jobs will be available for people because there's going to be so many people without jobs. One of them will be in providing opinions and analysis and just talking. And so I think that's where I'm going with this. I think it would be really nice if I could actually build a following of people that... I don't want a following, sorry, that's the wrong word. I build people that are interested in just basically talking and chatting. What I really want is interaction. What I really want is to be able to talk to the people in power that are doing what they're doing, and I don't want to be played off like some idiot. Is that too much to ask? I have legit questions. Defer to the experts. We need to understand that families matter. If it's not a traditional family, it doesn't matter. But the best thing for children, without question, is to have male and female influences to give them balance. Sexist. Anti-gay. Oh, sorry, I answered that. This is not anti-gay or against single mothers or fathers. It's pro-children. Yes. Yes. Men are not the source of problems, and neither are women, but there's a balance of natures that the child will receive benefits from experiencing from a feminine and masculine experience. This needs to be coupled with peaceful parenting so a child learns to reason instead of blame the world for their misfortunes. It's so easy to blame everyone else for everything. I imagine I will get the most pushback from this, but if you wish to argue for the greatest benefit for the greatest number of people, this is unequivocally and empirically true, no matter how many ideologues try to muddy the waters on this subject because equality or something. Really, it's ideology, an intellectual excuse. Really, it's ideology and intellectual excuse promotion for many reasons, but it's devoid of the hard truth that if you want equality, you want more capable people, not more confused people who spend their lives looking for the answer to, who am I? This is the inherent paradox in this type of thinking. You think you're making less bullying overall, and this should be the objective, but it has resulted in more people who are lost, confused, and drug dependent. I suggest Gabor Mate. I need to wrap this up for now, and this is the first draft with a little editing, but I will try to build in these answers at a later time and revise the things that didn't come out right. But these are desperate times, yes. What matters more than anything else is that we start to think about where we are, how we got here, and if we're going to, well, where we're going to go next as free people, if we so wish. Peace. I don't know. So yeah, that's it, I guess. Let it be known that all I'm trying to do is have a conversation. I think our lives matter. I think our freedoms matter. I think that we should really think about what we're doing before we give all that stuff away because some guy in a white lab coat told us to. And I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep talking, and hopefully I get some traction. But who knows? So if you have any comments or criticisms, please tell me, and I'll try to respond. But I'm in an hour and 40 minutes now, and that's a good first day. If you watch this, thank you for your time and your consideration. I appreciate it. I don't have any quick, easy answers, but